Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltiziak, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast, part of the Minute Media Podcast Network. The Detroit Lions are now in a new, grittier era, and we look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players, gaining more insight on what makes this team go. Welcome to another episode. Say it ain't so, Demo. In episode 258, we discussed what I hoped we wouldn't be talking about anymore, folks. David Montgomery and a trade. Well, it happened, so now we're going to break it down. We're going to talk about the why. We're going to discuss how this impacts the roster immediately, plus what else is impacted as we move forward. We're also going to hit on the Graham Glasgow release as well. We'll get to all of that and more. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
This is David Montgomery, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
Joining me today is Coach Jerry Ainger, his former Michigan High School Coach of the Year. He's also named Coach of the Week by the Detroit Lions. He is the Scouting and Training Director for Bull Rush Sports. Coach, I love talking to you, but this is a quick turnaround, and I'm not loving the news.
No, I totally agree. It's kind of a bittersweet, sad day, however you want to say it, losing Demo.
That it is. To help us analyze this is the Sports Writer of the Year for Community Newspaper Holdings Incorporated, the Senior Sports Writer for the Traverse City Record Eagle, James Cook. Happy to have you here, James.
I think we all feel like we just took a knuckles sandwich to the face.
Ooh, I like it.
Ooh. Yeah. You're just a bunch of knuckleheads. Right?
Yeah,
right, Coach?
Yeah, knuckles head.
There you go. Guys, I had to use the David Montgomery bumper for this episode. It's a tough one, man. I remember recording a special short segment when the Lions signed him in free agency 3 years ago. I was so excited for that move. It's only right that we do a special one with him leaving. So it's just been a crazy 24 to 36 hours, if not longer than that. But as we now know, David Montgomery has been traded to the Houston Texans for an interior offensive lineman named Juice Scruggs. The Lions also get a 4th-round draft pick this year and a 7th-rounder next year. The rumor had been swirling for a while. I think I just tried to live in the world of denial for as long as I could, that it was even a possibility. But let's start with the reactions. James, let's start with you. What was your reaction when you heard the news today that it actually happened?
I was a little surprised. The original reporting was that it was just a 5th-round pick, and that was it. And I was just kind of like, oh, that really? That's it? And then I think it was Tom Pelissero who responded to that and said, no, it's a 4th and a 7th and Juice Scruggs, whose full name is Frederick Henry.
All right.
Juice is not his real name. It's a nickname.
All right. Coach, how about you? What was your reaction?
Oh, I was shocked. One of those things you just kind of, we talked about, we didn't want to see it happen, but, then again, from a coaching standpoint, I also look at it and go, well, might be time to move on. The good thing about the Lions, and the first thing I said is, hey, they take care of their players and the ones they love, and they put him where he wanted to be. So I'm happy for him and happy for the Lions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no surprise to anybody. I'm bummed out, man. I mean, how much did I like David Montgomery? Go back to episode 13 of this show, and you'll hear my excitement when the Lions got him, because I didn't think they could get him in free agency that year, 3 years ago. Now, guys, I knew this couldn't last long, but I wanted to run it back just one more year. And again, it was a major luxury having both Demo and Gibbs in the same backfield. We'll touch on that shortly. So let's process the trade and talk about how it impacts the Lions. Why didn't it work out? I mean, in our last episode, we talked about the arguments. Does he want more carries? Is it a contract issue? Is it a winning team? Is it a salary cap? And we kind of debunked most of it. Now, the carries might be the thing, Coach, because football players want to play football, right? I mean, you're going to understand this way more than I could, but can you talk to that a little bit?
Well, one of the biggest things is, first of all, he was brought in as the number one. Then he kind of started splitting. Then he kind of was reduced role, and I think he was okay with it until the numbers kept going down on that. But I'll tell you one thing from a player standpoint is I kept seeing text messages last year, guys, whether it was friends or something like that. Hey, Demo, they're not talking about you. Hey, Demo, I guess you're nobody, and that's stuff. What I'm talking about is the same sentence, Gibbs, Sonic, Knuckles, Gibbs, Montgomery, and all of a sudden it's Gibbs, 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 Gibbs. Oh my God, you see Gibbs. Oh my God, you see that. And I think that grows on you as a player. I mean, it's pretty hard to say this is my house and somebody's going to come in and take he's eating the steak and I got to eat hot dogs, stuff like that. And I think that just started weighing on him a little bit. I just do. And of course there was, the Twitter accounts kept fueling that fire, you know. And if you had said, "Hey, Gibbs had a great game today. Monty set us up," but it was always Gibbs. We got to have Gibbs. We got to have Gibbs. And I think and you don't, as a coach and as a writer and stuff like that, you don't realize that what you're doing to that human being when he was on top of he's on top of the mountain, and now you're just kind of chipping him and knocking him down. So again, sad to see him go. It's just hard to give up that reign as an athlete. You want to be the man, and now all of a sudden we don't know who you are. And I think that's how he started feeling.
Yeah, James, what's kind of some of your take on this?
Well, he wouldn't have felt that way if he listened to our podcast.
For
We were
sure.
always beating the drum for more David Montgomery.
Oh yeah.
I'm just kind of curious if he's going to still hold this youth football camp in Traverse City this summer.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm not
He's going to let
expecting
people
that.
ask him questions.
Yeah, I'm not expecting that to take place, you guys. I'm pretty sure that will not happen, but could be surprised. I don't expect it though.
Right.
It's a long flight from Houston to Detroit.
Yeah.
Or Traverse City.
So my thing, I guess, is that the part that baffled me the most was, it made more sense for the Lions to maybe move on than for him to want to move on, from my perspective, which was, he's in a good situation with a winning team. He's splitting carries, but guys, he is buried behind a top 4 running back in the NFL. Not buried, but you're behind the top 3 or top 4 running back. So you're not like behind a top 10 or 15 running back. You're top 3 or 4. And if you look, you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, you've got Jahmyr Gibbs, you've got Jamison Williams, you've got Sam Laporta. Does Dave Montgomery become the 5th option on this team? That's a lot of slices of pie to split the football up with. And so going somewhere else, he's going to be the number 2 option, maybe the number 1 option, maybe the number 3 option, but it's going to change the calculus. And I don't know what his goals are, what it is that he wants out of football. We haven't heard him talk. All we've heard the Lions say is they want him here, but he has to want to be here. And so I don't know how it lines up or whatnot, but you add all those things together, and maybe there's just something different he wanted. And so for that, I mean, he handled it like a professional. He never went up and complained publicly. It was a year ago we heard people say, "What about David Montgomery?" You brought this up, Coach. I mean, people were saying it. It's like, hey, people forgot about David Montgomery. And wait, that's a year ago. And then you saw what happened the whole season after that took place. And it was like, yeah, a variety of reasons that the numbers worked out the way they did. But he had 4.5 yards a carry. It was the second best rush per carry average of his career, but he wasn't getting the touches. And so, it didn't work out for a variety of reasons. It seems like it was backwards to what I would have expected it to be. I was expecting maybe the Lions to think they should move on because they can't afford him, knowing they're going to send the money elsewhere, but that wasn't the case. So, well, guys, what the trade looks like. They get Juice Scruggs, a guy in the final year of his rookie deal. He was a second-round pick for the Texans in 2023 out of Penn State. Coach, you kind of took a little bit of look at this guy. You get that plus a 4th and a 7th. What do you make of Juice Scruggs?
Yeah, I mean, he had those injuries. He had that back injury, which has to be playing a big toll on an offensive lineman. Actually, I got him on right now. I'm kind of watching some stuff against the Jaguars too. I think he's a great backup. I think he can play all 3 positions. We're going to talk about Glasgow also. I think that's going to be a thing. I think James had mentioned that earlier today. Sometimes somebody who's been drafted that high and things, you get some injuries, back injury, you get behind the depth part. The offensive line coach doesn't like you. They all of a sudden they're sitting in the background. That dude's never healthy, and then you kind of move away from him. And so, a change of scenery is also always good, especially with Hank Fraley. He will get the best out of this guy. And I think you're a second round draft pick. You assume, and we know what that spells. And all of a sudden you get some injuries. You're not getting all those starts. But he played a ton of snaps. And you can see he needs a lot of Hank Fraley coaching, which I know Hank will do a tremendous job with him.
All right, and we're gonna get into even more how he's gonna impact the roster once we get to the Graham Glasgow news here in just a couple of minutes. But James, you said it initially. The Lions got you heard or was reported he got a fifth round pick for the trade, but then it was amended, and you saw fourth round, seventh round, and an interior offensive lineman. How do you feel on what the trade looked like?
Oh,
The second iteration of the deal looks a lot better than the first. I'll tell you that. It's a
Yeah.
fourth round pick this year and a seventh round pick next year, and then like you said, Juice Scruggs, who's a former second round pick, a big dude for a center. He's 6'3", 310, and has experience playing center and both guard positions in the NFL. So he does have some medical problems. Coach alluded to he had the thing where he missed a whole year in college after a car accident where he had a fractured vertebrae. He had, I think, another injury in college. He missed part of his rookie year with the Texans with an injury. But he's been pretty healthy since then. He's played 36 games in the NFL, 20 starts. Only started one game last year for the Texans, but played in every game and logged a decent number of snaps, like a couple hundred snaps, which is interesting for somebody who only started once. So he played a lot on special teams in part of that. But I mean, you don't get 300 snaps or whatever just playing on special teams. So I haven't looked at the tape like Coach has. So maybe they used him as like a sixth swing tackle or something like that, like the skipper role or something like that. Or maybe they just rotated lineman a bit. But he got an unusual number of snaps for somebody who didn't start.
Yeah. Well, I will say, like you guys said, I mean, you're getting a fourth round pick. You got a guy to compete on the offensive line. And you know what? There are other free agent running backs out there that you can get. They're not going to be David Montgomery by no means, but they can fill a need. They can fill a void. And so, if it had to happen, this isn't the worst thing that could have happened. So, all right. So let's take a look now. What do we think the Lions are going to do? Free agency, the draft, what route might they go? I want to go back to what Justin Rogers said a while back, and that was the Lions had Sonic and Knuckles kind of like Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram were with the Saints. And they were paying them like that, right? But they were paying Montgomery like Ingram. But they were starting to use him more like Latavius Murray this past season, not quite featured as much. So therefore, you almost have to pay less. And so I think whoever the Lions bring in is going to be more of a Latavius Murray type role. And I know we'll get into this, in the free agency preview, but I think they've got to bring in a veteran running back who has NFL experience because you need to have that on your roster in case, just to give Gibbs a breather so he doesn't overload the carries to begin with, but then also as an insurance policy. Coach, what are your thoughts on what the Lions might do going forward with the running back room?
Well, I think they're definitely going to. I believe they're going to bring somebody in unless they feel that the guys that they have in camp are going to be able to. But they've also talked about the competition and stuff, and I think there's people looking at like, oh, Monty's gone now. I got a shot at that. I'm going to really have to work my tail off. Well, hopefully they've already been working their tail off. So I think they can go out and get they save some money. And going back to Juice, he's on a rookie contract, like you guys said. So, if he doesn't pan out, he doesn't pan out. But I think it was the 1.9 million, the difference between the contracts with him and with and signing things so like that. Again, I don't know exactly what that was, but so they got some money to go out there, and there's some guys out there. Well, of course, Kenneth Walker's out there.
But, Coach, are you starting to spread some rumors?
But Travis Etienne, Dowdell, Gainwell from Pittsburgh, Alec. I mean, I know you want to talk about that. So there's a lot of things, and I think the Lions have looked at with that extra fourth round pick. Can they get one of these running backs that just came out of the combine? And there's some love. Love, of course, he's going to be a first rounder, but they were projecting Love's counterpart. From Notre Dame to go number 20 to the Houston Texans or 21, wherever the Texans were picking. Well,
Yeah.
that's not going to happen now. So how far does he end up sliding down and some of those other running backs? So they have to bring one in. And I think they know that and they're going to go out and find it. And then one other thing was Connor may get cut from did you guys see that from
From the
Carolina,
Arizona
from the
Cardinals?
Arizona Cardinals? And
Hmm.
I think he knows something about our offense coordinator. So,
All right.
multiple backs. So, it's going to be fun to watch the next couple of days with that.
All right, now, Coach, just to be clear, when you say bring someone in, you mean sign a free agent veteran, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. Sign a free agent. Unless,
Yeah.
again, unless they think, I don't think they're going to rely on the draft, but they could bring in one of these sign a free agent. And then if the draft happens, the draft happens.
Yep.
So,
All right, James, how about you? What's your take? What do you think Lions might do?
Yeah, I think they'll bring in a free agent. There's actually a pretty good crop of free agent running backs this year. Coach
Yeah.
mentioned a few others like Rico Dowdle, J.K.
uh,
Dobbins, Tyler Algier, Rashad White, Kamani Vidal, Isaiah Pacheco. Rumor is that the Texans, after making this trade, are going to release Joe Mixon.
yeah.
He would be another potential fit. A veteran guy who's not going to cost too much, but when healthy is very productive, just like James Conner. And this year's draft is not considered particularly running back strong. There are obviously good running backs, but the Lions have enough needs, I think, that they need to take care of in the draft that I don't know that running back is going to be at the top of the list considering what's available in free agency. And, the running backs nowadays don't get major contracts for the most part, unless you're Jahmyr Gibbs or Saquon Barkley. There's guys out there to get a good veteran number two, and then let them and Vaki battle it out,
Mhm.
and then see you have sailors on the roster too who showed some flashes last year and can play in special teams. So anybody late in the draft, if they're looking at a running back, has got to be better than Jacob Sailors immediately for the Lions to look at him, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah. And again, I want them to bring a veteran in because you want someone with game experience because this team's
Mhm.
goal is to make the playoffs. And
Yeah.
so you have to have another veteran in there. All right. Well, that wasn't the only news of the day. So let's move on to the Graham Glasgow news. The Detroit Lions released the offensive lineman. He played 7 seasons in Detroit in total, four originally after being drafted. Then he had a stint in Denver for three and then came back to play left guard. Then he moved to right guard. Then he moved to center. He did whatever the team asked of him. I am so thankful for Graham Glasgow. Him coming back was a big part of the reason the Lions got hot 3 years ago and they went 12-5 that year is because of him coming in and exceeding expectations. I loved hearing his interviews. The dude was hilarious, and I swear I probably only caught a glimpse of his humor because I didn't catch everything, and I wasn't ever talking to him in person. It was just catching things out there. So, but we talked about this. We said, yes, the Lions are going to have the same amount of turnover, maybe a little bit more than the years past, but we're going to see guys that are more familiar names turning it over. David Montgomery, Graham Glasgow. James, what do you make of this move?
Well, they got younger and cheaper, and a guy who's I think just as good as Glasgow potentially, and has more of a ceiling at this point, I think, than Glasgow did. Glasgow had a pretty good floor as a good veteran guy who can play those three spots, but what they got in Scruggs is kind of the same guy who, when healthy, can do those three things. And maybe when Hank Gurley gets his hands on him, maybe you can turn him into a starter in a year or something. But at worst, you're getting a pretty versatile backup that doesn't cost too much and still has upside.
All right. Yeah, coach, I can't say I'm completely shocked about this. I do remember at the end of the season, they asked if he would be back, and he said, well, I'm under contract, so yeah, he wasn't planning on leaving. It was again another glimpse into his persona, which was pretty funny. Um, But what's your reaction? What are your thoughts on Graham Glasgow's release?
Well, James said it too. We got younger. We've saved a ton of money. I think we saved 5.5 on Glasgow. I read another thing that he was possibly his physical didn't pan out well. I think the Lions were also going.
Oh,
We have to set right now that we are going to have to find that spot in the draft, or we may have to find that spot in the free agency. And I think that's one of the biggest things. And and we all three of us will agree, and most people that listen to this will agree. Glasgow's best spot was right guard,
yep.
and Tate Ratledge is our right guard. And Glenn, he's not going to play left. He played left for Zeitler. You guys remember that? He switched
Yep.
over to left for Zeitler, and he never complained about it, but he got abused at it. And he's 30. What's his age? 34, 35? Is he that old?
I can't remember how old he is off the
He's-
top of my
he's
head,
up
but
there. I
yeah,
mean,
he's not a spring chicken anymore, and he's
No.
had some injuries.
33. He's almost
33.
34.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
and again, 7 great years, and I totally agree with you on the Matt. He was adding him to that offensive line and for that 2023 season was phenomenal, or 20 whatever. But
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. The 23, 24,
Yeah.
25, those
And-
3 seasons. And
and
that 23 season, where did he play that year? Right
Yeah.
guard. And that was his strength. They moved him for Zeitler because you didn't move Zeitler. And then you
Right.
moved him to center. And again, Graham did everything good. He played his heart out the last 2 seasons at his not natural position of right guard. And then, like you said, when you draft Ratledge or right guard, Graham's a backup now then.
Mhm.
And you can't pay the backup that type of money. You kind of
No.
alluded to that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, all right, and you guys talked about the acquisition of Juice Scruggs adds some depth there. We know the Lions are going to be drafting and looking at free agents. Don't know exactly what that means for this. We still think there's a chance that they could look at a center. Lots of things are going to be happening over the next 10 days. So, all right, final thoughts here. I'm going to say, like Dan said, Demo is a pro. He was a class act for the Lions. My daughters met him in training camp. I had a chance to speak with him as well. I hold the guy in very high regard. I respect the heck out of him and his game. I wish nothing but the best for David Montgomery. James, any final thoughts here?
If they do decide that they want to draft a running back, they've got plenty of picks on day 3 to do it with. Now they've got 2 fourths, potentially 2 fifths because it's potentially a comp pick in the 5th or 6th round. So it looks like 2 fifths and 3 sixths is what they're going to have. So a lot of day 3 ammo that Holmes could use to beef up the back end of the roster with some young guys or trade up to target some guys that he wants.
All right. Coach, how about you? Final thoughts?
Yeah, gonna miss him. Gonna root for him for the Texans. The other thing too, you think about the Lions traded him to Houston, who they don't play for 2 years, and they
Yep.
didn't want to see him. And it's just great. And if we do see him, it'll be in a pretty cool game. So good luck to you, and good luck to Glasgow.
Yeah, I'm going to say I like that destination as well.
Yeah.
Folks, in this ever-changing, rapidly changing landscape, we are going to get our free agency preview out there ASAP, and hopefully it's not too dated by the time you guys get to it. Thank you for tuning in. Please tell your friends and family about the show. Find us on social media like Twitter, Instagram, all major streaming platforms. That includes YouTube as well for the video version. Love to hear your thoughts and reviews. Check out more episodes and content at notthesameoldlions.com. And until next time, stay gritty, my friends.